What up, my fellow Survivor lovers? Welcome to Survivor Historian, part of the Challenge Historian Podcast Network. I am your host and dedicated this season, at least, Survivor Historian Jacob Hollaball. So wonderful to be here not immediately, almost 45 minutes after the episode 5 of Survivor 50 that we just watched to recap and review it all with you here on YouTube and then anywhere else you may be listening to this after the fact. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as we will be covering Survivor throughout the rest of this season and potentially beyond. We'll obviously get back to the challenge coverage when that comes back around or when any off season comes around. But this season of Survivor has been too good, and I've been back in the fold for too long and really wanted to chat about it. So earlier this week, we did do a little catch up and recap of everything that went down on the first 4 episodes. And now we'll be here every Wednesday night right after the episode airs to talk about each episode individually. And we picked a great one to come back in because two of my all-time favorites, going head to head, and one comes out on top. We'll talk all about that by the end. The agenda for the evening, we're going to walk through the episode bit by bit, discuss every little thing that happened, my reactions to it. Once we are done and have concluded with that, which will be the bulk of what we're doing here, we will do a quick stock watch, some whose stock's up, whose stock is down, maybe some of the less obvious, not the more obvious ones, the less obvious ones whose stock rose or fell this episode, and then give a quick update not only on our winner pick for the whole season, but also make some predictions for who will go home next. So without further ado, let's dive on in. So we open, and instead of going back and forth between every tribe like the show does, we are going to group everyone up. So let's just talk Vatu Tribe Pre-Challenge. So day 10 basically of Vatu, night 9, right after tribal into day 10. Everything we see from Vatu Pre-Challenge for the episode. Ozzy, we get a little bit of post-tribal, not a little bit, we get a lot of it. Ozzy lets out his anger and, lets all the frustrations fly. Christian does his best to calm it down a little. The conversation is mainly between the two of them, with everyone seemingly being a part of it, but they're the two that did most of the talking. And Christian notices the potential parallels, which I think fantastic, just gameplay on his part, one, to be aware of everyone's history and how that could play into how they're going to act on this season. That's good playing there, good strategy there, and just good awareness. It's also really fun for them to show because it gives them an obvious thing to show a clip from previously, and they do a great job. The editing team is just so good on Survivor and weaving that in, showing the kind of side by side or the back and forth, Christian and everything else. So really, really good stuff there. And notably, during this outburst is too strong. Outburst is too strong. But during this letting go of some of his anger from Ozzy, Christian does take ownership of the decision to leave him in the dark. He explains, we didn't want you to have to lie. And so we didn't know if you'd want to vote Mike out. So we left you out. It wasn't because we don't want to work with you. It's because we wanted to make it easier on you. And also says, I told the others who wanted to fill you in, don't do that. Let's go this route instead. Couple things on this. I do feel like Ozzy, it was the exact right balance. Yeah, the norm is just the norm across the board. You come back, you were one of the people blindsided, but not the one that went home. So you're still there. And you're supposed to just kind of like, you don't have a ton of other options usually, other than just like, you guys did a good job. I just appreciate that I'm still here. Hey, it's all good. It's a game. We're going to, we're not always going to be on the right side of it, and just kind of bottle up whatever anger you're feeling or any feelings that you're having and keep it moving. But obviously you have those feelings. And I think it is, especially in a returnee season where there isn't like, everyone is too experienced at this to know that like, we don't all have to do the kind of the obvious fake thing that everyone does in these different moments. We can be a little more genuine because we all know what everyone's feeling in these moments. We've all been through these moments multiple times before. And so Ozzy letting it out, I think is perfectly fine, given that I feel like he did really toe the line perfectly well of like how measured to be, how upset to be. It wasn't like he was raising his voice, but he wasn't like yelling at anyone. He was kind of like making it known that like, Christian, I know you were like the main person behind this. And but more it was just Christian was the one responding. So then it kind of became a thing between the two of them as much as anyone. He wasn't like, Christian, how could you? It wasn't like directed at him. And so I thought, get it out. Why not? I don't think again, especially someone who's returning on the fourth or fifth time, like is gonna be able to just do the okay, fine. Like I'm just glad I'm still here thing, especially a couple votes have gone like this before. And so I think he held that balance and didn't go too over the top with it where it could become a detriment of people being like, come on, man, like calm down. It's a game. How many times have you played this and you're this upset over this? So I think he nailed that. And I think Christian owning it is a really good strategy move from Christian. Keeps his alliance happy of him trying to like, take any and all the anger or any negatives that could come out of this move. He's trying to kind of take those for them. So a little bit of a boost within his own alliance. And as far as Ozzy is considered, it's not like he's going to be more mad at you. Probably not for, or it's at least a good bet. I guess I could see someone, in some scenarios being like, wait a minute, it wasn't even a group thing. It was just you. Well, now you're the only one I'm targeting out of this. I think Christian already felt that and knows how dominating he's been on this tribe and in all of these votes so far. And so I don't think there is any downside to him saying, hey, put all the blame on me, Ozzy. It was just me. They actually wanted to tell you, and I told them no. And it boosts him a little bit extra with his alliance members for, kind of falling on the sword, if you will. But the only other thing then after that night, we get some stuff. It's just mostly Ozzy versus Christian kind of stuff. We get Ozzy meditating, the two of them hugging it out, being okay for the time being. But then we get Ozzy and Steph talking. And crucially, the first person finally says out loud what all of us, the viewers, have been seeing through 4 episodes plus this opening 5 to 10 minutes, which is Christian is controlling this game. He says Christian is in control. It's Christian's game. And so far, every person that has gone home has been because of Christian and at Christian's behest. And by the end of this episode, we will add another person to that list. And the only reason we now have someone who went home without Christian's input was because it was a double tribal and Christian literally wasn't there to have input. Otherwise, I'm sure he somehow would have. But he is on a hot streak. Ozzy is at least the first one to say it out loud and have it confirmed back from Stephanie. And it seems like their whole tribe is kind of getting the idea here and finally seeing the picture. Then we talk the Cila tribe, everything pre-challenge from Cila. And we do learn, I'm glad they highlighted it. We see the couple conversations between the original, the OG Kalo 4 that are on this tribe, talking numbers. Jonathan and Devin's talk and was like, we're the outsiders. Which one are you guys thinking? But we get, I believe it's Jonathan that says it. I think Jonathan and Camilla both touch on it maybe in confessionals that, there is a downside to we haven't been to a tribal council yet. So yeah, we were all on a tribe together before the switch, and it would look like we've got the numbers here, 4 out of 7 or 6 or whatever 7 is left on their tribe. But if you haven't been to a tribal council, you haven't voted together yet, you haven't actually like you've competed in the challenges together and you've won all of them, fantastic, but your alliance isn't solidified in any way. And therefore, your numbers now on this tribe are not solidified in any way because you haven't done anything together. You haven't voted together. You haven't proven any little ounce of trust or, proof that you can and want to work together. And so, that's all rubbish, all of this little talk. And it feels like they all kind of know that. The conversation, it's not like with the most confidence anyone is saying, like, yeah, we got those 4, so it's us. And even Devin's trying to say, like, I'm one of the 3 on the outside and I want to be the first on the inside of the group. They all seem to know, like, it looks like there's 4 over there, but it's not the strongest 4 by any means. And there's not a lot of to really go off of with that 4. And quickly, we get a realignment right off of that. Rizzo gets his crew together. And by that, I mean, he gets 1.5 members of his crew and 1.5 members of the crew get him because he goes to D first and D gets Rizzo on board. This, and it deservingly by the end of the episode, where everything is kind of Rizzo centric, Rizzo's POV, if you will, almost here. But in that first conversation, D is the one that, brings him in as much as, he might have been going there for that very reason, for that conversation. But she very smartly, because she's just a genius. And by the end of this episode, we'll talk, you know, through one of the people I thought was one of the best players of the new era, not looking like it at all in this particular episode and getting himself sent home. The not consensus, but I think D is regarded, if there was a poll, who's the best player from the new era, 41 on. I think D would win. It would be, there'd be three or four names that like get a decent amount of vote, but I do think D would win that vote. And I would probably vote for her myself. And this episode and season so far, she is showing it. The social capital she seemingly has built already across this tribe is really, really good. And she very smartly here says, like, I've got this big red flag. I am the last previous winner still here. Rizzo, you have a big red flag. No one has played with you. And so that puts, I want to collect other red flags essentially. And she smartly brings him in, which then Rizzo, in his mind, I got D on my side. Great. He does, but he did it versus she brought him in. He goes to Camilla. He goes to Sari. Sari is the one I'm counting. He really does get Sari into the fold on what eventually will be a vote in just this alliance. He wins her over, and he kind of has no business winning her over. And it's great that Sari lets it be known in the confessionals, like he's kind of doing the things I wouldn't do if I was in his shoes. Like he's telling me too much, and I've played Survivor a lot, old school Survivor, and like you don't be telling people these things. Like, I'm going to use this against you. But he just wins her over to the point that she's like, I haven't told a single person other than the Ozzy gave me this clue. I haven't told anyone. Ozzy knows because he literally was the one that gave it to me. But otherwise, no one knows I have this extra vote. I'm going to tell Rizzo of all people. That's a huge moment of real trust that he won her over, did that. And I do want a quick tangent side note because I don't think it will be talked about anywhere else. I think Sari proved something this episode and across the last couple, but you could actually see it in this episode come to fruition, that the strategy of doing nothing in Survivor can work for you really, really well. Now, she might have been doing all kinds of things and we just haven't seen it the last couple of episodes, but that's always can be the case. We're only seeing, very little bits of what's actually going down. But it seemingly she was like, my threat level was getting a little high there. We switched tribes. I'm going to kind of just I'm not going to throw out ideas. I'm not going to try to build. I'm going to let anything possibly come to me. And there's a lot of times, honestly, it seems like a majority of the time, at least in the new era, where doing nothing and just let the people come to you, it honestly ends up working as well as anything else because the one who starts to do something is usually the one that ends up with the target on them. And I feel like Sari really nailed that and is suddenly like now in a strong alliance by the end of the episode after having been this person that everyone, including D, who is in her alliance, has said, like, we can't let this person get too far in the game. Everyone just loves her way too much. And that is just a really powerful thing the later in the game that this gets. And she's looking a lot better by the end of the episode. So Rizzo's got D, he's got Sari, he's got Camilla, maybe, as eventually will be the kind of swing vote. We'll talk about that later. Charlie, though, really begins burying himself early in the episode and throughout the whole thing. He just can't get over the Sophie thing, which I feel bad for Charlie by the end of this episode. I know he's gotta be just unbelievably frustrated. He seemingly was so frustrated throughout playing it. Obviously, then the way he goes home has got to hurt in a huge, huge way. But things like then looking back and knowing like I spiraled a bit because of this thing this guy told me, and then it wasn't even like the real story that he didn't even like not vote for his number one. He voted for his actual kind of number one is 1A over his 1B because his 1A played a way better game and was obviously the deserving winner of the season. And this was nothing like Maria vote. And I can't believe I was so mad at this guy. And I can't believe that I spiraled so hard and I caused my own exit from the game ultimately. But so he's got to be kicking himself for that once he watched season 49 was like, wait, what the hell? I thought this is not what I thought this was. Like, especially the early episodes of 49, if Charlie was watching that, I'm like, wait a minute. Why are I thought and Sophie's a part of this, but like it seems like Rizzo and Savannah are like in lockstep and Sophie's the third wheel, which was kind of the case to a large degree. And yeah, he had to be hating watching that. But waking someone else up at 5 a.m., especially someone sleeping so comfortably. I mean, Rizzo has his perfect little fetal position with the leg up on the seat of the boat, which I've never seen anyone sleep. Obviously, I guess I really haven't seen anyone just sleeping in a boat like that too many times outside of just maybe on Survivor in the past. But incredible sleeping arrangement he has built for himself there. I love that he's just owns the boat. He's like, that's where my stuff is. That's where I sleep. That's my space. That's Rizzo's little house, basically, if you will. But you don't wake someone up that early. Like you do if it's your main alliance member and you're like, hey, we can't ever be seen talking, then yeah, like that's the perfect time to go wake them up and be like, hey, no one else is awake. Let's get a quick combo in so we don't have to do it during the day. But when the person you're waking up, you are so clearly targeting, they know so clearly that you are targeting them, and you are just wearing it on your face. You are clearly stressed. This is clearly not a like, hey man, like you're my number one. Let's get on the same page. Isn't this great route here? No, it is very clear. You come in hot. You want to know, hey, who have you told about this? Who have you told that? That's like, dude, I was asleep. Like, could you not let me finally get a little bit of sleep? Way overplaying, really bad move. And obviously, it would, that's playing the results. We know what the results by the end of the episode are, but just hard game talk to someone who's not in your alliance, who you're actively targeting at 4 or 5 in the morning is just really, really bad stuff from Charlie. Let's pivot then to Calo Pre-Challenge is we get the briefest from them. Ultimately, throughout the episode, we get very little from them because they ultimately win the eventual challenge. But we do get a good, the little bit that we get is really, really fun. Coach is running everything, and he knows he's running everything, and he is loving it so much. Like he is just relishing. No one is having a better time on Survivor 50 than Coach. It's not even close. This is so far a perfect exhibition for Coach and just everything about him. And he feels on top of the world. Aubrey confirms. We do at least get one person confirming like Coach is at the center of the tribe and kind of seems in the power position of the tribe. It is good to get someone else confirming it, not just Coach saying, I feel like I'm in charge of everything and I'm good with everyone. We do get a little confirmation, so that's good. And of course, Coach gives out some nicknames. He knights his two knights, his two brothers. He gives out all these nicknames. I'm gonna call it the Triangle of Honor for now. It'll eventually have to be the Square because we know there's a fourth member coming soon. Jonathan, of course, will have to join this. We sniffed this out. Many people did from preseason on. The moment this came to be, it was like, hey, there's a couple people here whose whole brand, whose whole thing is playing honorable and honest and straightforward. And it was like really actually Joe's thing on 48, but like he like is going to really, really do it. It's the thing Coach says, maybe not always does, but he definitely says it. It's definitely a Colby thing. It's a Jonathan thing. Like this was seen coming. And the moment these three got on a group together, they immediately like, hey, I want to play the way you and I play the same way. They got together previous episode, and now Coach is just confirming with the true knighting in the name giving. First to himself, he now will be the Tide Walker this season. I take extensive notes, but I could not get down the full lore behind the Tide Walker, so I will have to go back and revisit the lore of all three names. I got the names down, not the full lore, but there was lore to be had for sure behind the Tide Walker, the Stone Bell, and the Oakbound Warrior. And I got to say, once Joe finds out that he's the Stone Bell and Colby gets to be the Oakbound Warrior. Oakbound Warrior is kind of cool. Tidewalker is actually pretty cool. Stone Bell, not so much. The lore was really cool. Again, I didn't write it all down, but it was something that was there and it was a good story and, good meaning and everything. But come on, Stone Bell versus Oakbound Warrior and Tidewalker. Like you got the worst of the three names, my guy. But he was also taking it the most serious. Coach was obviously taking this very seriously. This is Coach's whole thing, and all of this matters a lot to him. Colby had a good laugh about it. He knew how silly it was. It was still fun for him. It at least confirms an alliance of sorts. But I appreciated that Colby knew this is absurd and silly and fun, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you, Coach. Whereas Joe, maybe he is just really good at masking the feelings. Maybe, I mean, he is an actor. He's recently, I forgot where I saw he showed up in a TV show of some kind, doing a little acting. Maybe he's doing a little acting here. I don't know. He is either very, very into this and completely dead serious and honored that this is happening, or doing a damn good job acting that way because he seems really locked in and honored to be knighted and given a name by Coach. And again, once this merge happens next week, I am so excited to see, like, so do they just welcome Jonathan in with open arms? And does Jonathan get a nickname? And do we got 4 of them, or is it going to stay just the triangle of honor? And I am very much looking forward to the obvious moment that's coming of Coach blindsiding one of these, stabbing one of them in the back, and having the best excuse ever for why it's actually the honorable thing to do and why he was wronged first. Coach trying to figure out why Joe, come up with an excuse for Joe wronging him when obviously Joe will have done nothing wrong, is going to be great. It's going to be theater of the highest. And I hope that we get to see that happen. Then we got the challenge itself. Solid challenge. I think it's hard. I go back and forth on, like, every challenge can't end in a puzzle. They're all different, but they all at some point is like, you do a little obstacle course, everyone has a job to do, and then there's a puzzle at the end, and 2 or 3 of you do it, or the little boards or whatever. And you can't have every single one end like that. But then at the same time, I do feel almost like the ones without the puzzle at the end feel a little lackluster sometimes, but this is a solid challenge and another good one to let the couple athletes really have their time while they're still in this team setting before we move to the individual challenges that we know usually, more often than not, a very different skill set that gives advantage to a different set of folks. So Jonathan and Ozzy in particular get to really show out here, and they both do in a big, big way. I mean, Jonathan is so fast in the water, swimming and climbing up, and Ozzy keeps up with him. Like, he makes a little ground because he's better at the knots and everything, but like both of those two absolutely dominant right out the gate, get their team's lead. And overall, for the whole challenge, we won't talk each piece of it, just kind of winners from the challenge, if you will. I think Genevieve and Tiff, both big winners as far as like showed really good performances here. Genevieve really goes fast as the second swimmer, makes up a bunch of time for the green team to begin their comeback. Tiff goes very quickly with her portion, getting the keys out, everything untied, and definitely makes up a bunch more ground, and then gets that immediate first throw of the sandbag on, and relents then to Joe to do the rest of it. But those two were the engine, especially Genevieve, given just how long of a portion and the physical difficulty. Her catching them up was huge to start the comeback. Tiff was huge. So big, big winners for the two of them. Again, Jonathan and Ozzy did do great at their portions and didn't do bad at the throwing of the bags. Like, they were doing all right at the end. It wasn't some horrible performance. They just got beat. Rizzo, stock down a bit. He did go against 2 people who did his portion very quickly. And so sometimes it's just a comparison thing. Similar like Joe at the beginning, like, it looks like Joe did bad when in reality it's like, dude, Jonathan and Ozzy were so fast at that. Like, Joe did a good job. He was just way behind because the other 2 are freaks and given a challenge tailor made to their strengths here. But so Rizzo, in comparison, like, he didn't do a good job. It took too many throws, but also, he did like a below average, maybe bad job. But then that looks bad or even awful compared to the 2 people who do it really well next to you. Coach, stock up, winner for sure of the challenge, knowing how to execute that throw. That's very good experience coming in of, hey, I don't have to nail the throw. I got to get it within a small range. Like, I've got this wide platform I'm on, so I got to throw this thing way past the bag. And as long as it lands within like 4 or 5 feet one way or the other, which is a pretty big landing zone, then I've got the room to maneuver around and pull this at the angle and the way I need to clip this thing. Expert execution on his part. And then Tiff, again, I already said for the first throw, but Joe, again, who didn't do bad in the first section, just looked bad comparatively, actually did pretty good and then does really good on the throwing. I believe Tiff just got the one and then Joe got the four. It might have been two, then three. Either way, both of them clear winners. And then obviously their tribe clear winners of the challenge. And only one winner because it's a double elimination. And I did bad math that I want to clean up on the catch up pod doing the first 4 episodes. I did just horrible math. Said, yeah, it just was one off. So let me do the math again. At the end of this episode, both once Charlie and Angelina are gone, there's 17 people left, and there's 8 total episodes remaining in the season, counting the finale. And so 17 people left with 7 episodes, and then the finale 8th episode left. I do think there's probably going to be 6 people left going into the finale versus the regular 5. It just feels like they would, one, to compress things a little bit less during the season, and two, the just blowing out the finale even bigger than it maybe usually is. So if I was correct and it's 6 people going into the finale, that would mean that we need to eliminate 11 people in 7 episodes, which would mean 4 of the next 7 episodes would have a double elimination, or at least 2 people going home of some way, some volition, and 3 where only 1 person goes home. There is a chance, there's always a chance, like there's a double elimination plus someone, God forbid, gets injured again, or we have another elimination of that kind where it's like, hey, 3 people went home in 1 episode. But overall, if I'm correct, and there's going to be 6 in the final, then in the next 7 episodes, 4 will need to be double limbs, 3 will be single. In the case that only 5 go to the finale episode, then that means that 5 of the next 7 episodes will have double eliminations, and only 2 of them would have a single elimination. Again, though, I feel like they're going to take 1 extra person to the final this time around. So after the challenge, let's talk Scramble and Tribal, and let's do just one tribe and one tribe instead of back and forth here, just to make it easy again. Vatu first, because I think while both entertaining, both offered some kind of fireworks, and it was a little bit up in the air, Vatu definitely, I think, by the time we were a few questions into the Tribal, was starting to be a little more clear and less dramatic than their counterpart after them. Which I also am interested to know who actually went first that night. It ultimately doesn't matter in any way, but I do think they would choose to show us, the more exciting one, if you will, dramatic one, if you will, second, regardless of what order they actually occurred in, since they both happened on the same night. But Vatu, first things first, was it just a horrible edit, or was Angelina not really doing much in the way of scrambling in gameplay this episode, this season, in general? I think she just maybe got a really bad edit on, the group that was, Christian sucking up a lot of oxygen here, Ozzy doing a lot, sucking up a lot of oxygen, Emily kind of doing a lot, sucking up a lot of oxygen. Like, I could see it just being like hard to have like her and Steph, with Mike also taking a lot of screen time. Like, it was just like your tribe, you're on a tribe that's kind of the focus here these last couple episodes, but everyone else is doing so much that there's only so much time. I think she probably just got a bad edit, but it also seemed like she wasn't doing a whole lot here to, there wasn't a lot of scrambling going on. There wasn't a lot of pitches happening, when I think she was well aware that her name has been on the chopping block, at least on the last one, if not times before. And so I kind of expected to see a little bit more from her, especially then by the end when seeing the results was like, maybe they just didn't want, I don't know. I think it was more the edit than actual her gameplay or anything, but Ozzy and Christian obviously take center stage. Their clash is only heating up now. And I found it very enjoyable. I found it to be really good television. And I really appreciated, this is 2 very much veteran players having this kind of out. Same as the beginning of the episode and the two of them being able to argue and Ozzy being able to like actually share the frustrations, knowing I've played this game too many times to just like for anyone to believe the like, oh, ho hum, like you got me again. It's all good. Let's work together. Same thing here. I enjoyed that these two are kind of like having it out and actually sharing like their back and forth of like, I trust you, I don't trust you. Ozzy having the the courage to go to Christian and be like, "Give me your shot in the dark." At this point, I'm targeting you, and maybe this is a complete bullshit, but I want it back. That's how you get your trust from me. The fact that Christian eventually does do that, but just that they're back on a good page, and then they're in alignment on who we're gonna vote for. But then immediately Ozzy's saying his name, it comes back to Christian. They're willing to confront each other and be like, I know you're voting for me. I know you want to vote for me now. We can do that. We can not do that. And just, I liked the back and forth between them. And I liked how open it was in that it wasn't a deal breaker that, like, hey, I found out you just went around to saying you were going to vote for me. And that's not a deal breaker that they could then eventually still vote together. I love that. I love that. I think that fluidity is a mark of an experienced player and a smart player. And that type of stuff doesn't really happen as much in an all new person season, where I don't think if these were both brand new to the game, the moment Christian hears Ozzy is said yes to his face, but then went around and is like trying to get him votes. And you knew how upset he was the night before. There's no way Christian isn't immediately like, well, then we're voting for him. And it becomes who's getting voted out, Ozzy or Christian thing. Maybe they're also just both good, making good television for us. Who knows? Either way, it was pretty good television. And I do think between Christian giving Ozzy the shot in the dark, maybe I'm willing to we'll find out later, potentially, especially now with the merge coming up, if we see from Ozzy, did he get a good read that Emily wasn't, that conversation they had, that he had not won her over, that Emily had immediately went back to Christian. Maybe Ozzy, that was a good read on his part of like, oh, I went for it and I didn't get that. In between Christian giving him that, realizing probably that he hadn't flipped Emily in any meaningful way. And then probably some nudging from Stephanie that we maybe didn't see of like, we can still all vote Angelina here and like you're becoming public enemy. I think that's what got Ozzy back on board in the end to be like, okay, let's actually do this. And the probably the most interesting thing though he does bring up from a long-term game strategy is that conversation with Emily where it says like, like you're currently being viewed, like the two of you are viewed together. You are attached to Christian right now in this game, and Christian is running this game so far and voting all these people out, and you're attached to him, and that's not necessarily a place you want to be. People don't know that we are open to working together, and we could hide that, and people wouldn't maybe know that as much. I thought that was a good pitch from Ozzy, and I do think Emily, has a lot to think about. Being attached to the person running the game is a high risk, high reward. If she, makes sure that she turns on him first and gets him out prior to that moment, the danger part of that is if he's this big target, yes, he can be a shield, but if you are clearly his number two, if he's the one everyone wants to get out, but maybe he pulls off an immunity win or, a little team immunity win where only us six are vulnerable and those six aren't, suddenly she is then the target of like, well, the only way we can at least get his number two out and weaken him while he's immune. And so that's the risk you run. There's really good things that come with that position. There's really bad things. But I think she's right to like, we're still in the group phase. Once we hit a merge, maybe I detach, but for the moment, I want to stay attached to this person and get to the merge part, having stayed in the same alliance and have that available to me at the merge as at least as an option instead of burning that right now and going into a merge with maybe one person, Ozzy, who's now back with other people he had made deals with. And I'm now being regarded as, oh yeah, last night Emily flipped on Christian. So a good read ultimately by her. They go to the tribal. We get Jeff doing impersonations. I thought it was fun. It felt much more organic and natural. This wasn't prepared. It did not make me cringe like the rap. It actually made me smile and laugh. I thought his impression of Jonathan was spot on. And I think it's because he led with an impression of Jonathan and specifically getting to do the Mr. Jeff and everyone getting to have a little bit of a laugh of like, yeah, it is ridiculous that that guy calls you Mr. Jeff over and over. And we do get, I think, our first real, I'm sure at the opening when they first got on the beach, we got a Mr. Jeff from Jonathan, but at Tribal later, we get a Mr. Jeff from Jonathan. So I thought they were funny. I thought his Jonathan impersonation was pretty darn good. His Colby one was okay. I didn't think his Christian one was ultimately that good, but it's a lot harder to do that on the spot, third in front of the person himself. So I'll give him some grace there. And then, it goes how it goes. There's a little tension early on, but again, it did feel like a tribal by a couple questions into it. It was like, wait, so they just all decided to vote Angelina here, and they did all decide to vote Angelina. We do get at least the really nice moment of her. The moment she pulls out the pack at the end and says, Jeff, give me a second. You knew where she was going, gives the jacket to the group. A great full circle moment, really fun, really enjoyable. And she goes home. Head held high, might have got a pretty poor edit, but everyone was definitely happy to see her back. Then there's the Cila Scramble and Tribal, and a bit more fireworks here for sure. Quick backstory because I did podcast about Charlie's season. I did not podcast about Rizzo's season. So quick update on why I love both of these two. These are two of my absolute favorites from the entire New Era run. I thought Charlie was one of the best players in the entire New Era and was just a fantastic player. And I specifically at the end, I thought he kind of blew it in his final tribal council. As much as yes, it's ridiculous. I was mad for him that Maria didn't vote for him. I thought going into the tribal council when they're doing their little over, narrations over, watching them kind of prepare for final tribal, he explained his game beautifully and explained the exact type of game I think is brilliant. He basically said, to paraphrase, my goal every single day was to check in with every single person and make sure the door was open. That every relationship out here is not just a like, are we working together? Are we working against each other? But it's a, are you willing to work with me? Is that door open? Is the door closed? Have I already gone through the door? But like his whole goal was with every single person at every single moment, every day, I need to be good with them and have them good with me and have that door open. And he explained it really beautifully, much better than I just did. And I was like, he actually had been doing that. And you could go back and watch and be like, okay, like he would actually, that's a great strategy. And he was pulling it off in this great social game, made some big moves. And then I don't think he explained it well at all during the tribal council. It was like, where, when they asked you to do the little narration of your game, that's what you needed to bring to tribal. He ultimately loses, but I just thought he was an incredible player and I really liked him on the season and everything else. So I came into this season loving Charlie, rooting for Charlie, big time. Rizzo, I, like a lot of people, started off 49, was like, this kid sucks. This is not going to be enjoyable. They put this like really young Gen Zer on here for the rest of us to laugh at and think is silly and everything else. And like some people, because it definitely then was a split. I think everyone started off kind of against, and it seemed to be a split in the fandom of those that came around and those that did not. And I was one that did not only come around, but by the end of the season, I absolutely loved Rizgod, Rizgod baby, and completely rooting for him and thought it was great. His whole run on 49 was great and was thrilled that he was one of the ones coming back and thought he was for putting two people in this unique position of playing back to back, only a week and a half in between playing, the others not having seen their season, that it was going to be really entertaining to see how Rizzo of all people would handle this. In this episode, we get a lot of that and of like, man, you are doing a lot, doing too much. We'll come to that. But so I love Charlie. I love Rizzo. And that means the second half of this episode. And so the last couple episodes, now that when they became mortal enemies, I have been really torn about it. And I was very torn during this and watching Charlie kind of spiral out and ultimately get blindsided and removed from the game. Definitely hurt a lot, but it was at least made manageable because my guy Rizzo on the other side getting the full hero edit. So let's talk about it here for a second. First and foremost, just got to say, Billie Eilish still has not said anything about this season. I haven't been checked social media. Maybe tonight she finally put something out. I don't know that that's happened, but it's becoming really embarrassing because this episode, they're not even calling it the Boomerang Idol, which I thought we would just eventually be like, it's the Boomerang Idol. When you first find it, you got to call it the Billie Eilish, and everyone else shorthand would be like, it's a Boomerang Idol. But no, all the talk of the idol amongst this tribe, it was just there's a Billie Eilish idol. No one even used the word boomerang. I don't think they were actually explaining to the people who were learning about this idol for the first time that the boomerang portion. I don't think anyone shared that part of like it comes back if someone gets voted out with one in their pocket. I don't know if they all know that. I guess I hadn't thought of that before. Does Rizzo know that that's a thing of part of the reason why he has one, or that happens if he I'm guessing is that do they get the full parchment when they receive it, or is it different? I don't know. They probably don't. But anyways, I digress. Billie Eilish, please say something about this episode, about this season. I thought you were a fan. They named this thing after you. They're shoving your name down our throats. So much promotion. Please say something. Anyways, Rizzo sharing his 49 story. He's too excited about it. He's way too excited. He's doing the baseline strategy of like, I've got to tell them everything that happened on my season. I've got to try to fill them in. They can believe it, they cannot. But this question mark, I have to at least give them an answer to the question mark. And then, maybe they probably won't believe it, but at least I've like tried to fill in that question mark. I agree with the baseline. You kind of have to, and especially him as the one that didn't win. It makes it a little easier of like, I was a good player, but I didn't win. But he's a little too there's too many clips of too many different conversations. So it's clearly wasn't like one time where he kind of explained it to everyone. It was kind of a lot of times. It probably wasn't in the moment as we're seeing it right here, like during the scramble. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I get, as much as like it's not good that he's getting that excited about it, I get why he is. This experience he's having, it makes perfect sense that this kid who, grew up on this show, loves this to death, is such a super duper fan, comes out, wants to make this name for himself, wants to be this character, wants to be this legend, does great on his season, does that confidence that he already has plenty of, gets built up and up and up and up because he holds on to an idol and plays kind of pretty cocky throughout the whole thing, holds an idol through 7 or 8 votes or whatever it ended up being, and only goes home because he can't make a fire. And, then what his not his best friend, because Sophie is the best friend now as the story goes, but the person he was working as close with as anyone, does get the win. So he gets that validation of like, I didn't get voted out. I kind of dominated the season, and my, right-hand person that was really dominating the season won. He's on cloud nine. Jeff then asks him to come back. A week and a half later, he's on the beach with all these legends of the game, and he gets to tell them his story. They haven't seen it, so he gets to tell them how fun is that. I can't believe I'm telling Sari and all these people what I did on my season. Like, it makes sense that he gets really riled up and really excited about it. It's too much. It's definitely, there was a better way to go about this, but I understand how this is happening, given his personality. Charlie, on the other side, is going completely against personality from his season. He is just he's so on edge this whole scramble and end of this episode. He seems so caught up. I know part of it is the edit, and they're asking him about it over and over again, but like, he's the one that woke Rizzo up when he did, and is the one that says it so seriously and all that. Like, I cannot get over this. He did this. He's he's the one that used mortal enemy, the whole thing. He's buying into this, and it's really sloppy in a way. He was nowhere like this on 46. He was never let the emotions, or like, he was never on edge. He was never like, he was obviously for sure stressed. Everyone's stressed at all points of this show, but like, kept his cool all the time. This is just so out of character that the idea, clearly that trauma of like losing by 1 vote, and that vote being your number one, who you got out, but they were trying to get you out. You both understood the idea of like, we're a duo, that duos can't go to the end together, honor amongst that. And then, he is just clearly so wears that so like such a big wound and a scar, and it makes sense. It's devastating. I cannot imagine what that was like and what that is like to still like live with. Like, I was so close to my life changing in this monumental way with that money and everything else. And just the moment there was even a reason for like, this person is, I can put my mortal enemy on this person unfairly. He was so locked in on it. It clearly just it caused a spiral, and he couldn't get out of it. Um, it does ultimately kind of come to during the scramble comes out that like Camilla was the swing vote. She was the one, I'm not really I like this D Suri Rizzo thing, but I'm not really in on the Rizzo part of it. Over here, I got Jonathan and Devins and Charlie that want to go this way. And I could see that. And, that could work too. She's in an incredible spot. She gets to choose a side without being at fault for anything, really. She's been letting the game come to her, the information come to her, slowly but surely has. And I think by episode's end, she's in a really good position. They head to tribal. I liked that the combo of all the conversation about like this unique experience Rizzo was having of like it's very different for him amongst anyone else. Like coming back 9 days later, the confirmation 9 days later, he's been playing Survivor for 36 of the last 45 days, which is crazy. And like, you know, I don't know if that's like 9 days from when they were marooned or from when like pre-production started and everything, but if it was from like marooning, then like he's doing stuff all 9 of those days. Like they did so much preseason stuff and coverage and interviews and everything else that like he's just been there basically playing the game, for 45 days at this point, more or less. I think Devins is right to point out you learn so much from your season, not just from a fan reaction, but from like getting to see did people actually believe me? Did everyone that voted with me, like, were they always actually with me? What were they saying in their confessionals? Whereas, who actually knew what? You just learn so much more of like, maybe I didn't play as good as I thought. Maybe I got lucky more times than I thought. Those sorts of things. Rizzo doesn't have that. So again, speaking to his confidence and why he's just beaming here of like, I've got another plan and it's going to work. Cause all of my plans have worked for the last month and a little over a month of my life. I have had plan after plan on Survivor and it has worked and it has worked. And I've had an idol in my pocket and I've never played it. And he does the same thing on this evening. And yeah, unbelievable. The conversation is really fun, but the conversation that does made me I was so confident his name was he was going home. I was so confident his name was on the parchment. Just too many questions about him. It was too Rizzo centric. And Charlie was again being way too obvious and way too serious. And the editors really did choose to give Rizzo the hero edit here. Like the hero of heroes edit, which with Charlie's commentary of everyone's a hero in their own story was a really harsh thing to say and a really confident thing on Charlie's part to say in that moment, thinking like for sure this guy's about to go home and I'm just kind of giving him a little life lesson here. But before they go to vote, I was legitimately like screaming, like, this is so obvious they're voting you out, Rizzo. If you do not play this idol, my goodness, everything you did before is coming crashing down in this moment, and was so confident. And then boom, it goes the other way. It goes Charlie. They read the votes out in the right way. That smile slowly but surely creeps back on Rizzo's face as Charlie's name comes up that second time. And they did something good here. They did something really good. And Rizgod gets the win. His vote out confessional was amazing, doing all the Taylor Swift lyrics, like bringing some real bite back to Charlie, some real like kind of villain-esque, like talking some mad shit there. Both of them do, but his especially in the while voting out is some confidence and talking some shit. And it's great. And it looks amazing when it works out the way it does for him in this instant. Charlie goes home very upset, very bitter, very, deservingly so, all of them. Like he's just downfall of a great player. I still believe he's a great player. I think that wound is just that big. And the moment it got even mentioned or poked in the smallest little way, it hurt him and spiraled him. And there was no going forward for him in the game after that. But D and Camilla, it was the final thing about the tribal, and then we'll do stock up and down, and D and Camilla will come up in that. They leave the tribal council or after the vote happens, and Charlie, walks to pick up his thing and everything, and we get a view of everyone sitting there. And D and Camilla especially, D looked, like, well, Rizzo was over there beaming, lapping it all up. D, calm, confident. Camilla, though, really just calm, confident, like a winner view. Like if I could have got a screenshot of just that moment, her in that moment of like, everything is working out perfectly right now. I am no threat. but I've had my hand in this. I've got all the information. I knew exactly what was happening tonight. First real big moment of the season. I was right there, square part of it. I was the deciding vote. I would eventually be able to explain how I was the deciding vote. She was just, the look on her face was like, I'm doing really well, and she was doing really well. So it was worth pointing out. So those two are gone. Charlie and Angelina are gone. Let's talk stock up, stock down based off this episode. And a little bit based off, we do know from the next week on, there's a merge. Well, we at least know they all join each other on the same beach. We don't know, is there going to be kind of a transitional period or a straight merge, what it's going to be exactly. But trying to leave that as out as we can, because we'll talk next week of like who does this help, who does this hurt once we know, is it a true merge? Are they kind of still in two? What's it going to be? Few people's stock went down this episode. Now, Angelina obviously voted out. We're not going to say that one. I don't think her legacy stock was really hurt at all. Charlie, though, obviously down because he's out of the game, but like from a again, I thought he was one of the absolute best players of the new era. And now if I try to say that, people are going to be like, all right, did you see how bad and sloppy and stressed the ending for him on 50 was? I'm like, I know. But so that stock version of his stock is down, and I still love you, Charlie. Chrissy has zero chance of winning this game. She was not shown. I don't think, again, basically just not shown. And I don't try not to get too much. I don't follow the Edgic accounts. I try not to get too wrapped up in who's good at getting what edit, but it's kind of impossible to not notice. And especially it's when it's like, hey, have we even seen this person on this season? She was on, I did see her moment of the episode was I saw her tweet of I didn't actually go to Survivor 50. I just went on vacation, and that's why you haven't seen me, something to that effect. Fantastic. So she's having fun with it, but there's no way she wins the season or has much of an impact given that we've seen zero from her so far. Joe, I think his stock is down. Just because I have it in my head because I want it to happen, because it'll be just hilarious. I just think Coach is going to do him dirty. And I think he's going to get let down by being the one that actually is no, I truly want to play with honor and truth at all times in this game. And that's just not going to happen on this season. It just isn't. No matter how much others are supposedly committed to that too, it's just not going to happen. So I kind of saw the level of seriousness he was taking it. I was like, oh, stock down a little bit. On the upside though, a couple of people. As a group, I can't really delineate Emily, Ozzy, Christian. I think being able to come and work together again and now get to go into a merge and yes, they'll have some threat level to them, but they're just kind of the battle scarred ones of the season, have been to every tribal council. And I think that has some benefit to it. And I think they're all going to be in a solid spot. And just the fact they were able to come together after kind of all trying to leave each other at different points in this, or Ozzy trying to convince Emily to, etc. I think was a really good thing for their games long term. I think Cerie's stock went up. Again, I spoke to it earlier, but just the kind of let's sit back and not do anything for a little bit and see if someone else just takes the target for me, and it working out. And now she's got a couple good allies. I think Camilla and Dee, again, look super confident at the end of the episode, deservingly so. They've got some allies. I think Dee is finding her way as the biggest threat in the game is finding her way, navigating that beautifully. I think Camilla is doing a little of similar to Cirie of but without ever having the target that Cirie did at one point or a couple episodes ago of let's let this come to me. Let's let the game come to me. Let's let alliances come to me. Let's not do too much too fast. Let's not throw names out when we haven't even been to a tribal, etc. I think her stock went up this episode. And then Rizzo's for sure. I mean, the merge happening when it happens is perfect timing for him. You avoid, because there's an immediate backlash when there's a big move like that and people know you have an idol. You've pulled off this big move. You have an idol in your pocket. You are so obviously the next vote just to flush that idol at minimum. And going into a merge immediately after this is perfect timing to be like, okay, let's see if this little group we've built, we can actually go into this merge and work together. We can each pull in maybe one person that we've worked with previously and build a real thing. And me having done this big move maybe is a little less relevant now going into this big group setting. And obviously it was just a fantastic episode for him. If there was an MVP, it's him. Does he put more of a target on his back? Sure, I guess, but I think he just had a really big target because of being the question mark unknown that some people find grating or whatever, or just too much. So he removed the one person who called him his mortal enemy. That's a big win. His stock is up. Let's end with some predictions for next week and then an update on my winner's pick. For next week, I'm going to assume it's another double elimination of some kind. I will be interested to see, is this you're split into two teams and you both, two groups, not necessarily teams, and two people win immunity individual, and then you each go vote as two different groups and two people go home. Are they going to do the best thing in the world, the most beautiful thing ever, and actually give us a 17-person tribal council where two people are voted out? Like, that would be insane. I would love that. Let's put 34 votes on the board here. Let's let everyone vote for two people and see what happens. That would be insanity and chaos. They're definitely not going to do that. But one way or the other, I think Christian and Genevieve go home next week. That would be my bet. I think Christian is going to come into this merge and people are going to look at him and be like, we would have thought you were a threat regardless. And now we're learning from, the three of you that have been to all the tribal councils. Ozzy's going to be quick to be like, I was only in on one or two of those votes. The others, I was blindsided. Like, Christian's running this. Christian pick and choose every single time, every person that went. I think that's going to get around quickly, and people are going to view him as, the first big threat of this merged group. And I think he's going to go home. And I think Genevieve is also going to be viewed by everyone of like, she's got a lot of respect from her season. I think people came in viewing her as a really good player and a threat. And then I think that they're just teeing up this Aubrey Genevieve thing too much. And given that Aubrey has a few connections now that she'll be at the merge, has that idol, I think there's a world where Genevieve is put forward as, hey, this is a big target. Is anyone interested in this? And Aubrey's like, I definitely am. And some things pile up. And I think Genevieve and Christian are the two that get voted out. It's a crapshoot though. It's 17 of them. It's hard to pick. So I'll be, if I get either of these right, it'll be mostly luck. I think they're educated guesses, but they are still guesses unless Colby goes home, because it is worth pointing out. He mentions his injury. We get a quick, he's sitting out the challenge because he hurt his foot and it hasn't gotten better. And when they give that little quick, hey, we got to fill you in on this, it usually is because we need to know about it later on, and it can't be some big surprise 2 episodes later, 3 episodes later. So I'm a little nervous about that. I thought it was on last week's Next Week On. We saw someone wrapping their foot and or ankle. So I'm guessing that is Colby, and maybe that's actually next week. I don't know. But I noted that, like, hey, they gave a quick 10-second aside to tell us that. That usually means something. There's usually a follow-up on that. So we will see. Hopefully it's just Colby's like, hey, I can't run it quite as fast or swim quite as well because my foot's kind of hurting me, and not hey, next challenge, he's not allowed to sit out. And they tell him like, hey, man, you're actually pretty hurt. Maybe you should get out of here. Let's hope that doesn't happen. As for the season winner, I said D, to myself going into the season, against all odds, was going to be our new 2-time winner. And then a couple days ago on the Catch Up podcast, I did say that, the same thing. I think D is going to find a way. In this episode, she definitely, is finding a way. And I'm sticking with her. I think she's going to find a way to solidify herself as one of the all-time greats, as a 2-time winner. And that's who I'm putting my money on. But just as a side note, the catch-up episode, I said D, Sari, and Christian had my eye, all three, and that I was picking D. I'm removing Christian, but Sari and D both still have my eye. I'm picking D still. I've got to have a pick. That's who I'm going with. But I'm just point out that Sari pulling off the perfect Survivor 50 ending, like if you ask Jeff and the production crew behind the scenes with some true serum, be like, who would you like to see win? The idea of Sari winning on season 50 would be just a really beautiful story to tell and kind of wrap up her story and just the first, the 50 seasons of Survivor, with her being the icon that she is, the beloved person that she is, not having won before. If she got a win, the way Jeff would eat that up and be able to get to tell that story and frame that story and narrative during a final tribal council, I mean, come on. So that still is very much out there for me that could occur. But we will see what happens next week. A merge of some kind, probably 2 more people going home. Hopefully none of them for injury and only for votes. Shout out to Rizgod, Rizgod, baby. Shout out to Charlie and Angelina. You will be missed. Charlie, I still love you. I still think you're a great Survivor player. And yeah, that's all for now. Shout out to you for listening, watching at whatever time you are doing so. I will be back next Wednesday night, live again during it on YouTube, posted immediately afterwards to all the podcast networks. So thank you for being here. Subscribe, rate, review, leave comments here. Send me messages on Instagram at Challenge Historian if you want to chat about this season of Survivor 50. And I will talk to you again soon. Peace.